So, Kathy, what are some of the challenges of raising a special needs child?
Wow, that's a life-altering question there, because all I can say is it's very life-altering. I think the thing that sums it up the best, I was thinking about this. There's a poem, lovely poem written by a mother of a special needs child that says, "Welcome to Holland." And it summarizes how all your life you've planned to go to Italy. And when you get off the plane, you're in Holland, which compares it to all your life you've dreamed of having a child, the perfect child. And when you get off the plane, you're in a different destination. And I think that to me has just struck a chord in my heart that that's truly how it is. And you go into Holland and you don't really wish to be there, but once you're there, you look around and Holland's okay. Tulips, windmills, people there with the same things you're going through, and that it's an okay place to be. Maybe it's not as flashy as Italy, but it's a good place. And that poem I have used all my life and just can't think of anything better that summarizes it. It does talk about how the pain will never go away from raising a special needs child, but it puts it in perspective that it's okay to be here. And
Yeah.
I think that's my experience.
That is such a lovely way to frame it. It's positive, and
Yeah.
there are so many positive things that come with raising a special needs child too. There are lots of blessings that go along with that.
Right. And you have concerns when you have typical children too. You lie awake many nights worrying about your typical children, but I think the concerns are just bigger and different when you have a special needs child.
We'd love to get to know more about Greg and your family situation. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Greg is one of three of my children. He's the
Whee!
oldest, and I have twins who are 2.5 years behind him. And then, of course, my husband and I, who've been married for 34 years.
When you and your husband were considering Greg's future, what sort of financial planning did the two of you do?
Well, we did the typical thing. I think once we had all three of our kids, Greg being the oldest, we put the will in place, which was the first thing. And then once we had the diagnosis with Greg and knew that our life would be on a different path with him, we went to a special needs lawyer
Mm.
and got a trust for Greg, and then got a special needs financial planner. Um, we have him through Merrill Lynch, and they have a special needs department. And we were lucky enough to come across a terrific guy that we've known for many years and has guided us and given us the ins and outs on how to plan. And so we opened a trust for Greg. We also applied for Social Security when he turned 18. And then when the Cal Able accounts kicked in, finally came to California, we were able to open one up for him as well. So, and then we have a life insurance policy, a
Fabulous.
second to die. So, and only have obtained all those just by going to workshops and becoming aware of how to plan financially.
So, with a trust set up, you obviously have a trustee. Do you also have a trust protector?
I do not. And, that terminology was new when becoming part of the Legacy Housing Program. Our trustees are our two other children, and I'm not sure who our trust protector will be. It may be one of them.
Okay.
Not sure yet. Things to think about. There's always something to plan for, just when you
Well,
think you have it all.
and it is a lot to put in place. It seems
It
like
is.
it seems
It
like
is.
you and your husband have really done a great job of thinking ahead.
We have, but it didn't come overnight. It came over, kind of when I was ready to tackle the situation and had the time, or when I was, mentally in a spot I could be ready for it. That's a challenge too, as a parent. Sometimes you just got to have everything off your plate, and there's too much overwhelmingness, and you just can't do it. So I'll do that later. I'll think about that tomorrow.
And how old is Greg now?
29.
29. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're starting to think there's going to be a point in the future when you and your husband aren't there for Greg, and what will that look like?
Lie awake many nights thinking those things.
I bet.
And what are we going to do? And have a good friend, Anna Wang, who has this wonderful model of his day program, Friends of Children with Special Needs, and started getting involved with that, only to find out the apartments weren't really available. And so we ended up forming an LLC about 6, 7 years ago, another group of parents to see if we could emulate their model of buying land near the day program that a lot of our kids attend. And took 6 years of finding out that was a really hard thing to do.
So what are your hopes for Greg's housing?
Well, once I found out that the apartment community model wasn't going to happen and it costs so much money and so many families aren't ready to provide, that's when I turned to the executive director at our regional center of the East Bay, because was president of the board for many
Right.
years. And I turned to Lisa Kleinbub and I said, what are our other options? And she said, you should call two places that I know that do legacy housing. And one was Chris and one was another one up here in the East Bay. And I did call both.
Okay. So Bach, as you know, has worked in this space for 20 years, and has 51 homes that they own, and they have adapted these specifically for the residents, and then they maintain them, and the regional centers then, supply caregivers and so on. So the legacy program is actually more of a private solution to that. How did you, um, what do you find most compelling about this particular model?
That Greg gets to live in the house he grew up in.
Uh,
And that my husband and I can do that for him. Um, we thought going the apartments and in a community model was the right way, but it's a lot of money and we're older and felt like it would almost be like taking on a second mortgage, and we couldn't get people to join in. And just one day I just looked at this house thinking, what are we going to do? This isn't working. This house is where he can live. This
right.
house is huge. I live in a single story ranch home on a third of an acre in a lovely neighborhood, 7 minutes from his day program. This could be it.
Oh, that's
So
lovely.
it just this, I don't know, just this calm inner peace. And my husband felt the same way. And that's what prompted the phone call to Lisa.
Oh,
You know,
fabulous.
can kids live in the house if the parents make it happen? And there's legacy. And that got my phone call to Chris.
Perfect. Oh, that's
I know.
perfect. And tell me about, Greg is pretty social. He would like the idea of roommates, and this model would allow him to sort of be matched with roommates that are good for him, and work for him. And then they, living in the house, would provide a stream of income that would in turn keep the house, pay for the house.
Operating, running, right,
Yeah,
maintained. Yes. It just, I can't tell you the good it does in your heart to feel that this is an option, because, there just aren't any out there.
so how do you think Greg will respond to this experience?
He knows. I think he's okay. Like I said, he's tricky. This is a kind of a
Yeah,
forbidden topic with him, but we hope as he gets older and as we go on. But he knows.
great.
I think we've asked him, would you rather live here, or would you rather live in the apartments like Friends of Children with Special Needs has? He picked here. So
Well,
that kind of helped guide us, because we could have pursued and gone down that route, probably sold this house, downsized our lives quite a bit to pay for all this, and gone through, I don't know, years of building something. But
right.
he helped guide us.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Hmm.
So it sounds like you really want to move forward with this
Truly.
model. What what are you expecting from the program in the future?
Well, being the person who's got to help Chris and all you guys plan with it, it's been great to work with you and to be able to know that the wishes of what my husband and I want will be carried out. That just means the world to us. I remember Chris first said, "You guys get to make the wish, and if you want, we want all the roommates to be like maybe from his day program where they can all get picked up at 9 o'clock on the bus together, dropped off at 3. Nobody's there during the day, and then they just need the help during the evening, and that's just perfect."
Yeah, I think there's something huge about Greg being able to be in the family home.
There is, and then, you know, getting to put our wishes onto paper and somebody helping to implement those when it happens later on will just, I know I'll be smiling down from heaven, knowing those wishes are fulfilled.
Your other children, have you
Mhm.
talked to them about this?
We have. They
And
are just, mhm.
how do they
They
feel
get
about
it.
it?
They get it. At
Okay,
least they're showing that they get it. They're twins. They're 27, so they're old and they're older and responsible as well. So they're old. They get it. We when we After we made the call to Chris, and because in our minds the house was going to be something to split 3 ways. When
right.
we're gone, my husband and I, right? They get inherited, and we'll split it and get the money and profit from that. So this was going to affect them greatly,
Mhm.
at least the house piece of it. And they get it.
Right.
They're very supportive.
So what were the things when you talked to estate planners and when you were, in the process of planning this, what were the things that were most important to you to have laid out?
I think the most important thing was that Greg would get to live here for his life. We have heard some stories where that doesn't always happen. And I guess when we talk to our estate planner, that written into the agreement means the world to us.
And as the process goes along, um, do you feel like you have the flexibility to make changes for Greg that he would need in this living situation?
I do. I do. Because hopefully we get to live a good lot more 10 or 20 years, and checking in with Bach as we want to do annually, if not more, if there's any changes or anybody has any suggestions. It feels like we get to be a partner the whole way,
Mhm.
and that feels like we're totally invested, and that's a great feeling to have.
Advice for
Yeah,
parents?
my advice is, I've gone down other routes, pursued buying land with other parents in an LLC, and that didn't work out as we thought it would. And Legacy Home came up to the top of the list at that point. And once I talked to Bach, it was the right thing to do. I knew Legacy Home was for us because we have a house, the house that Greg has only known, and it just is right. And I can only encourage others to have their eyes open and listen to this conversation. And maybe it's not the right timing now. Maybe your kid's only 13 and it's really hard to foresee the future. But knowing the options out there is, I think, the best choices we can give to parents.
Thank you so much. I mean, thanks for being willing to talk to us and share your story and Greg's story. Once again, knowing that everybody's story is a little bit different, but it helps. It helps to hear. So
Thanks, Suzanne. My
thanks,
pleasure.
Kathy.